Welcome back to another episode of the PVM focused Ultimate Ironman. In the last episode, we made some preparations for the Inferno. As always, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it and I hope you enjoy. Okay, so because we have 76 agility now, we can actually cross the stepping stone here, which puts us really close to Zulrah. So that is nice to have for getting back. And that's going to make this grind a bit nicer overall. But this is really the setup we're going with, so I mean, you can ignore the blowpipe because we won't be using it. Basically, we are just committing to a solo range setup. And this is essentially the exact setup you would use with Bofa, which is incredible for just killing Zulrah with ranged only. So first kill doing this method was a 2-minute and 21-second kill. And I used up about half of my inventory's worth of food. So not that bad. I definitely think we could get 2 kill trips. Okay, that's actually hilarious because we just got a record of 149.80 and that was our previous personal best. And funnily enough, this kill was going pretty fast. So I was thinking, I wonder what my PB is. So I typed it into the chat and I got 149.80. And then I looked and I was like, wait a second, that's literally exactly what we got before, which is pretty funny. Well, you know me, I am terrible at making sure I record the levels, and I just completely zoned out and forgot that I was even close to a range level. But that is 98 range completed. There hasn't been a lot of clips to record, but this is something I wanted to mention, so for anyone wondering about using crystal armor solo range setup with the crystal bow rather than the Bofa or the T-bow, it's actually very, very viable, and I have not really had any issues so far. And just for the record, this entire bow, which was 2,500 charges when I started, is now down to 30, so it's possible you could squeeze out one more kill, but I'm not even going to bother. But we started at 618, so we got just about 44 kills in a single crystal bow, which is not too bad because we've actually profited GP. So even though it costs 180k at the minimum to recharge, which is currently how much it costs me because I've done this quite a few times, I am actually still profiting GP, and this is coming from Zulrah. And honestly, of a lot of bosses, Zulrah drops probably the least amount of GP these days, and compared to something like Vorkath or Hydra. So yeah, I mean, it is absolutely viable. It's been a while since we've got a farming level, but checking this will get us to 82 farming. There isn't anything relevant to that level, but it's a cool level to have. So we just got a magic seed, and then on the kill before that, we also got a magic seed, and then on the kill before that, we also got another magic seed. That's pretty crazy. 3 in a row. I think it's a 1 in 128 drop, so that's pretty wild to get 3 kills in a row. Wow, we just got the same time again for our PB. It's been quite some time since we got a kill that's been this fast, and we got the same exact time again, 149.80. That was already our personal best, and that is the 3rd time we've got that exact kill now, which is pretty weird. There's 700 KC. There's just no way that this has happened again. Literally the 4th time now. Alright, well, I got to 720 kills before my Ring of Suffering ran out of charges. We can see that the Ring of Suffering has ran out of charges, and that was actually a good amount of kills within the amount of charges I had. I think when I came back to Zulrah, I had just about 2,400 charges. And we started at like 575 KC or somewhere around there. So that's a good amount of kills in that many charges. And I think I would rather try and get back into solo raiding and doing some other things. It was pretty late last night, so I wasn't recording, but we did get 83 farming. So we are actually 1 level away from 1,900 total, which is something I never thought I'd get on an Ultimate Ironman, especially not considering the goals that I really have for this account, which is just PVM, PVM, PVM. But I guess, you know, on the way to PVM, there are definitely some skilling goals you have to do along the way to make it a little bit better. So, you know, we've done that so far through the account, but pretty crazy to think about. This is what the stats are looking like at just about 1,900 total. I guess I didn't mention why I'm kind of doing this before going back to chambers. So the reason why I'm doing all this farming again and whatnot is not really for the inventory space, because obviously in chambers I don't really need that, but it is so I can get to 86 Herblore. 86 Herblore means I can +4 boost with a botanical pie, and that will actually allow me to make super combats. And super combats will be perfect because I do have a new strategy planned for doing solo raids that I've seen other Ultimate Ironmans do. And I think that that is going to make a huge difference, and super combats will be great because it means doing things like Tecton will be a lot more realistic for me, because beforehand doing solos, Tecton was kind of not viable even with the Dragon Warhammer, because I was never hitting with the Dragon Warhammer, and on top of that it was just super slow because I don't have a really good crush weapon. I'm using the Lance, which is a relatively okay crush weapon, but it's not ideal by any means. Okay, we just finished farming the last seeds, so we can see from the looting bag, this is what we've ended up with. We've collected all of the secondaries for what we could while we were farming out these seeds. And so we have our red spider's eggs and we have our white berries, and we're good to go from that front. So really the only herbs that we have to actually go and get supplies for is going to be the Aventos and the Lance Dimes. And that shouldn't take too long. Both of those are relatively quick to get the secondaries for. So we're going to go do that shortly and start doing Herblore. All right, that's a big one. 86 Herblore. We've basically finished all of our potions now, and we are ready to start boosting to make some super combat potions, which, I'll be honest, I never really thought we would get to this point. I know I say that a lot, but I don't know why, but it felt like getting to super combat potions was an extremely long ways away. And I guess technically we're still pretty far away from 90 Herblore, but with being able to +4 boost relatively easily with Herblore by getting some botanical pies, and we also have the Preserve Prayer, it shouldn't be too painful to make some super combats here and there as we need them. Obviously, if we were going to make thousands and thousands of them at a time, this would be really tedious, but we're only going to be making like 100 for right now, which again shouldn't be too big of a deal. The other big thing, which I guess I just noticed now after a minute, is we got 1900 total level. Alright, so this is kind of the setup we're going to run with. I saw this in a video, and basically what you're normally supposed to do is have a full 20 spots available, so you can do 5 at a time, but we're just going to run with doing 4 at a time. Again, we're not really doing this very efficiently anyways, so not a big deal. We only have 104 torsals anyways. But yeah, what you'll do is you'll actually unnote vials, so you'll have a full inventory, and then you can actually we can set these to be left click drop, and then we'll drop 4, we'll unnote some super strengths, we'll unnote 4, we'll get some super attacks, and then we will do super defense, and then lastly the torsals. And this is basically how you'll set up your inventory. So it is a bit click intensive compared to most Herblore methods. That wasn't so bad at all. We finished making all of our doses of super combat, so this turns out to be 104 super combats that we will be able to use in the Chambers of Xeric. Alright, so here we are, we're in Prif. And the way that this works is actually based around what I saw UIM Loki in his solo raid setup when he was grinding for the Twisted Bow. So what he did and what I'm going to be doing is I'm actually going to be suiciding here with the Locator Orb, and then I'm going to attack a guard, and I'm going to drop all my items here in Prif. And then particularly the reason I'm doing this is because I'm going to be picking up the super combats and the ranging potions as 4 doses. And then I'll be teleporting over to Varrock. I'll unnote those, I'll get another looting bag, and I will stash a full inventory of super combats in there, as well as holding a full inventory of ranging potions. Now, the reason this is significant is because this will allow me to effectively get 20 plus potions of each at 4 dose stored in Hespori, because once I have those, I will then teleport to the farming guild, I will die to Hespori, and it will only store those 2 things that I essentially picked up. So once we have our looting bag, and this is kind of what our inventory setup looks like, we can go ahead and grab the things we're definitely not going to take with us. Once you have all of your items picked up that you need to put in the looting bag, you can also begin to unnote your 4-dose potions and count out how many to get a relatively even amount of them in your inventory and the remaining spots of your looting bag. I actually used some filler items like the tinderbox and the buckets just to allow myself to count out how many I need. That way I can have a relatively even amount. And once you have that all situated, you can actually head to Hespori or whatever death bank you use, and you just suicide as normal to store these potions in the death storage. And here we are. So if we look at Hespori, you can see we have all the items we pretty much had before, but we have individual super combat and ranging potions that are already 4-dose that we can pull out whenever we need. So the way I would do this is, obviously my inventory is a little messed up, but I could just fill up all the gaps of the inventory, leave 1 space, and just withdraw 1 essentially. Okay, we're finally almost done regearing, and we reset again. So you can see having just 1 inventory space open, if I click take all, it will actually only take 1 of them out. So that's perfect. That's exactly what we want. All right, here we are back at the chambers of Xeric, and we're getting ready to do some solos now with a slightly improved inventory setup method thing. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. This is looking pretty good, I think, actually. I mean, 5 brews might not be enough depending on the raid, but I think overall that's pretty good. This is some of the first few attempts I've done on Vasa, and blowpipe walking while killing Vasa feels really strange for some reason. Usually blowpipe walking isn't that difficult, but it always feels like a delay whenever I hit Vasa, and it usually results in me taking quite a bit of damage, but we're still getting the hang of it, so we're just going to continue on. And also, I've really started to get the hang of doing 3-to-1 at Ulm melee hand. This is definitely a lot better than doing 1-to-0. It makes it way faster, but the only unfortunate part is, of course, you take specials every now and then because you're not actually skipping the specials like you would in 4-to-1. But either way, it's still a ton more DPS, and it feels really good to be able to do this. I definitely need to continue to work on this, but it feels nice, and the one thing I'm still messing up a little bit with 3-to-1 is skipping the flame wall, which I need to do a bit better of a job on. This raid is actually the first raid I've been able to do without having to use any supplies from my death piles that I've been setting up before going into Ulm. And we got rewarded with a purple, which is actually insane. We've unlocked Rigor, which is huge for the account. This is so critical in so many different bosses and situations. I think even compared to Augury, it is way more impactful and useful. So on the raid that I got Rigor, that was actually my first raid where I did not die at Ulm. I did suicide supplies into the Ulm room because, of course, I'm still learning. But in terms of afterwards with my regular standard inventory, I actually was able to complete the entire raid with just 1 brew remaining. But yeah, I am so stoked to have Rigor completed. It just feels so good. It feels like such a weight lifted off the account to have this completed, because it means we can kind of go do whatever we want, and we can always come back to raids whenever we feel like it, which we're going to do absolutely, because I've really started to have fun with doing solos, getting the hang of it, and I think now that we have Rigor, it will be a bit faster and a bit cleaner overall.